The fallacy of negative thinking. And this comes from a comment that I received on one of my videos. Uh, Geez, who knows what I was talking about? But I was yapping about something. Um, and one of the persons commented on the video, they said, for me, negative thinking has always worked for me. Because it's how I avoid the disappointment. So that's how I avoid disappointment. Negative thinking has worked for me, she says. So I just want to take a look at that statement and where she's coming from, and then help us to dispel the fallacy of negative thinking. And it's a fallacy indeed, because a person who decides to hold on to negative thinking like she is, she's actually defending the idea that negative thinking is good for her, do so because they're trying to avoid disappointment as a protective strategy for themselves, because they don't feel like they know how to manage their emotions. They figure if they just stay in the mindset of negativity, expecting the worst, then they're going to be able to stay calm and not feel bad when things go wrong. Because to her defense, inevitably things do go wrong, right? And so, have you ever thought like this? Like, maybe it's good for me to just have negative thinking or to be pessimistic, and maybe that'll protect me. The problem is, this will backfire on you. This approach will keep you stuck in fear, and it will limit your growth. It will limit your ability to have meaningful relationships. It will limit your ability to trust, and it will impede on your happiness. So, negative thinking, although it might seem like a good strategy, it is not an adaptive strategy. It's a maladaptive strategy that you developed in order to cope with your trauma. It's a maladaptive strategy that you developed in order to cope with your trauma. And so now it's time to take a moment, take a step back, look at that strategy, and examine, was this really the best way? Is this really the best way long term to run my life? Now that we're no longer in that initial trauma, that household that we grew up in, is it the best way to actually live my life to be negative? Am I really protecting myself with this? Here's the thing: the subconscious mind, your subconscious mind, synonymous with your body, your brain, cannot tell the difference between real life, what you're imagining, what you're dreaming, what you're thinking about, what you're seeing on television. Again, the subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between real life and what you're imagining. So if you're imagining negativity, if you're catastrophizing, which is where you think of the worst case scenario, the worst thing that can happen, your body feels like it's actually in that. You are creating the state for your body, a reality that's not reality, that's actually worse than actual reality. This is not a healthy strategy. Again, your body cannot tell the difference between if you're thinking the bad thing or if the bad thing is actually happening. You get the same emotions, feelings, the chemicals that get released into your system are the same. That's why when we watch a movie that's suspenseful, then our heart is beating, but it's like we know consciously that it's fake. Right? You're in it, you're having a dream, and you can become nervous or excited or sad in your dream. You can cry, you can laugh at a dream because your body doesn't know the difference. To your body, it's all the same because it's all operating off of a perception. So you got to think about the subconscious mind as being like a computer system, like AI, and it's perceiving things. And then based on what it perceives, it's giving you the chemicals that it thinks are appropriate for that situation. Does that make sense? So when you perceive things to be bad, when you perceive things to be the worst, when you say, oh, this negative thinking is what's going to protect me, what you're doing is you're keeping the body stuck in a state of negativity, keeping the body stuck in the worst case scenario, keeping the body stuck in the past or in a future that's bleak. And it's releasing the chemicals according to that perception of the mind. which is a lot of cortisol, which is not good, right? Cortisol hurts our body, it breaks us down, it makes us gain weight. So, having too much cortisol released into your system is to your detriment. Cortisol is good to a degree. It's there for a reason. Cortisol acts as a natural painkiller for the body so that when you go through a tough time or a hard time, your brain releases the cortisol to help to numb the pain. But if you're always thinking that you're going through a hard time or a tough time, then you're always getting a release of cortisol, which actually makes your body become oversensitive because of you getting too much of this chemical. So your body actually becomes oversensitive to pain. So now you're walking around like a raw nerve. And that's what happens when you think negatively. It's not protecting you, it's actually doing the opposite. It's like ripping the skin off and just walking through life like that with no skin, like a raw nerve. To protect yourself, you want to use the power of positivity. Positive thinking is like a fluffy pad. It's like you're making a fluffy padding, right? When I was a kid, I used to skateboard and I had these knee pads that had a nice fluffy like interior. And then on the outside, it had like a hard plastic shell. You ever see pads like that? So if I hit the concrete with my knee, it was the actual plastic exterior that hit the concrete, and then the inner pad would protect the knee so much so that I could hit the concrete and not feel it because these pads were so good. That's what we want to create for ourselves. We need to create padding for our ego. We need to create padding for our emotional state so that when we hit concrete, and we will, times will get tough, times will get difficult, things will get hard. There will be moments of disappointment. We're able to handle it because we've created all this fluffy padding. Have you ever seen someone like that that can just face a hard time and they're so resilient? They're just like, oh, this is so sad. You know, they shed that one tear and then they're like, hey, you guys want sandwiches? It's like, sandwiches? Sandwiches? You just got an eviction notice. Like, how are you so chill? The reason why they're able to skate and kind of roll with the punches is because they keep their mindset up in a state of positivity so that when something bad happens, they feel it, but now the cortisol can work properly because they don't have too much cortisol. The cortisol comes and it numbs their pain properly. The positivity creates a fluff so that they have a baseline to return to of happiness, peace, serenity. Whereas if you're like the woman who told me, hey, no, my negative thinking works for me, you have no baseline of peace. You have no baseline of contentment and happiness and serenity. Your baseline is torture and pain. That's your baseline. So you walk through life like a raw nerve, already in pain. I'm in pain, but I got to keep thinking negative so I don't get let down. And then something bad happens and you go, I knew it. Ha, 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 I knew it. I'm not let down. But now how do you feel? Even worse. Ah, bad things always happen to me. I can't handle it. It's so bad. Why are you responding like that? Because you're walking through life like a raw nerve. So now you can't handle anything bad. If one more person does this to me, yeah, it's one more person is going to do it to you. And you're not prepared. You're not equipped to handle it. I don't want you going out like that. It's like letting a friend leave the house without any clothes on. You're walking around exposed. I can't have you go out like that. So that's why I'm helping you today with this talk to be able to adjust your mindset to realize that negativity is not protecting you. It's exposing you. Negativity is not protecting you. It's exposing you. For one, It's creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you have negative thoughts, then you're shaping the outcome with your negative thoughts. So what happens? You go, oh, I can't trust it. I can't trust. And how do people feel when you just make them feel like you can't trust them? Oh, they feel like not trying. And then they become untrustworthy. No, you don't trust me anyway. So what's the problem? That didn't work. You created a self-fulfilling prophecy. It creates chronic stress, thinking negative. It stifles your growth. Thinking negative reduces your happiness. Thinking negative harms your relationships. Ultimately, it's bad for your physical health, mental health, financial health, social health, spiritual health. It's like bad in every way. Do not choose negative thinking. It will not protect you. But what about the disappointment? All right, because the woman in her comment, she said, it protects me from being disappointed. And sure, that could work, right? Like if you just expect the worst, then you won't be disappointed when the worst happens. But what I try to coach my clients to do is to let go of expectations altogether. Like basically expect nothing. And then you also won't be disappointed. But you don't have to think negatively, like this is going to be bad. You don't have to think that. You just need to not be setting yourself up for failure. Part of the reason why you have the idea that negative thinking is going to somehow save you or is better than positive thinking is because you don't really know how to think positive. Let's face it, you don't know how to do it properly. So what you're doing is you're going around setting expectations, thinking, I'm thinking positively, but all you're doing is setting yourself up for disappointment. You don't know how to do negative thinking properly. So let me help you out. Expectations are where you actually imagine that you can predict the future, and then usually you're predicting it in like a positive way, right? Or whatever, whether it's a negative or positive expectation, you're actually imagining that you can predict the future. You can predict what's going to happen. Does that sound healthy? Think about it for a minute. No, it's not healthy to think that we can predict the future. That's called mind reading. It's a cognitive distortion. We cannot predict the future. We do not know what's going to happen. So when you set yourself up, you go, oh, I'm thinking positive. I hope there's going to be ice cream at the party. I hope there's going to be ice cream at the party. I hope there's going to be ice cream at the party. Is that healthy, positive thinking? Or is that setting expectations? It's a misallocation of energy because hope is an energy investment. So you got to be careful what you put your hope into. What you're doing, ma'am, is setting up an expectation, thinking that you're thinking positive. You're actually setting up an expectation that could lead to disappointment. I hope there's going to be ice cream at the party. You can't predict the future. What's the point of hoping for that? Or another example would be, I hope this man that I'm with, I hope he's the one. You ever think like that? Oh, I hope they're the one. I hope he's the one. Sounds like positive thinking, doesn't it? But actually, you've crossed over into the extreme of setting expectations. You've invested your energy, hope, this precious investment, into something you cannot control. Here you go, universe. Here's my precious energy. Take it, and I'm going to put it into something that I can't control. That is not a good investment. That's like choosing to invest in Bitcoin over choosing to invest in your own business that you already have. Put it into something that you can control. Don't put your expectations and your hopes into things you can't control. Don't walk around with expectations at all because you can't predict the future. So how do we balance that? Well, instead of, I hope there's going to be ice cream at the party, you don't have to go all the way to the other extreme of party's probably going to be terrible. That's just, and so the reason, see what I'm saying? You don't know how to think positive because you just are going to the extremes. It's going to be horrible or it's going to be amazing. This is the only ways you know how to operate. Let me show you where the middle is. right? Healthy, positive thinking and managing expectations is to say, I don't know if there's going to be ice cream at the party. I have other reasons for going. I don't know if there's going to be ice cream at the party. Why set yourself up for all the disappointment with all the hoping and wishing? I don't know. I have other reasons for going. I have other ways of fulfilling my needs. So if there's not ice cream at the party, that's okay because then I'll just stop at the ice cream shop on the way home and get ice cream, or maybe I'll just get ice cream before, or maybe I'll bring ice cream. But what I'm not going to do is focus on what I can't control. They're going to have ice cream at the party. I don't know. I'm going to focus on what I can control. See how I brought it into my personal power? I'll bring the ice cream or I'll go get it later, but I don't know what's going to be at the party. Instead of, I hope this man is going to be the one for me. Then you get into idealization and limerence. No, no, no. You go, I don't know. I don't know. I'm talking to this guy. I don't know if he's going to be the one for me. I really don't know. So I'm not going to start placing a bunch of hope and energy investments. That doesn't make sense. I don't know if he's going to be the one for me. To be honest, statistically speaking, it's unlikely. But we focus on what we control. I can continue to vet him. I can give it a chance. Make sense? That's how you move forward with balance. It doesn't require you to think pessimistically in order to protect yourself. You just have to have balance. There's certain things you don't know. So all the hoping and wishing is not positive thinking. That's just going to some other extreme. It's actually called magical thinking, which is also a cognitive distortion. If you don't know what I'm talking about when I say cognitive distortions, that's a Googleable one. I didn't create the cognitive distortions. So you can go on Google, you go cognitive distortions, go to images, and it'll bring up charts of cognitive distortions. And you can look at the chart and you could see the way that you think on the chart. Everyone's got some cognitive distortion, right? And you'll see right there on the chart, oh, I have magical thinking. This is magical thinking. It's, I can predict the future. Oh, I hope, I wish. We don't know. So focus on what you control. I can vet him. I can bring the ice cream. Does that make sense? So all the hoping and wishing, is that positive thinking? No. It's wishful thinking, which is foolish, which is magical thinking. Positive thinking, magical thinking, two totally different things. We can't predict the future. We can't predict the future. All of that, it's forms of extreme thinking. So although it seems like it's on the positive side, it's really actually going to an extreme. So some examples of healthy positive thinking are focusing on things we control or we can actually do rather than the future, which we cannot control. So here's some examples of healthy positive thinking. Instead of, oh, my family is coming over. I hope we have a good time. This is going to be wonderful. Don't do that. I know you thought you were thinking positive, but you just said, I mean, bleh. You're setting yourself up for so much disappointment. Don't do that. Right? A lot of you guys are getting together. You're going to be off work for the holidays, right? So you're going to be getting together with some family. That's great. Don't say, "Oh, it's going to be great." No, 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 no. You don't know what it's going to be because you can't even predict that. So you got to temper that expectation and focus on what you actually control. I don't know how it's going to go, but I love my family. Focus on love. That's positive thinking. I love my family. I don't know what's going to happen, but I love them. I love my cousins. I love my husband. Let's do that. That's personal power. See, love is a choice. I love my wife. That's how we should be thinking. Not when I get home, my wife's gonna be there. It's gonna be great. You don't know if it's gonna be great. You get home, she could have something else for you. You don't know. You should say said to yourself, I love my wife. I look forward to seeing her because I love her, but I don't know what's going to happen. You see that slight adjustment? It's very important to get us into health. Otherwise, I am protecting you from the disappointment. You see how we are protected from the disappointment, but we still have positive thinking. I love my dog. I love my wife. I love my husband. I love my children. I don't know how it's going to go when I see them, but I love them, right? Positive thinking. Also, you should feel that way about yourself. I love myself. I'm going to go see my friends. I love my friends. That's positive thinking, but it's also healthy and balanced. You notice how I'm not setting up a whole bunch of false expectations that are going to lead me to disappointment. And then I have a bad mood. And then everybody's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, nothing's wrong. Just forget it. This holiday didn't turn out to be what I thought it was going to be. Right? Don't worry, if it's not you, it'll be someone else this year. And they have a whole breakdown because the family isn't the way the family should be. Don't set up the false expectations and you won't be disappointed. Hey, I love these folks. I'm looking forward to seeing them. Grateful to have them. Grateful to have some non-toxic people. By the way, not all of us have that. I'm gonna make some pie. I look forward to making pie because I enjoy making pie, keeping it in my personal power. Not, oh, I hope they like the pie. Why? Why? Why would you do that to yourself? Why? Do you see the pitfall? I hope they like the pie. You can't control that. Who cares if they like the pie? That should be your mindset. I'm making the pie because I like making the pie. I enjoy making pie. I enjoy having something to give. I like the idea. I look forward to being able to give the pie. To that point, I can mostly control this. I hope they like the pie. No, 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 no. We don't hope they like the pie. Does that make sense? I don't care. I don't care. That's personal power. Then they bite in the pie and someone, oh, I don't like it. And then like you don't care. And everyone goes, oh, are you okay? So and so said they didn't like it. Are you okay? And you're like, I'm fine. I don't care. Because you already mentally prepared yourself. See that? Uncle Ronnie gets drunk and then the people start arguing and you're fine. You're just like, oh, this is a good time to catch up on my emails. You don't care because you're emotionally disconnected. Why? Because you individualized and took care of your emotions by fixing your thinking. And by entering this gathering with no expectations, you are not disappointed to see it fall into a fight. You just, oh, this is time for me to check up on my emails since we're not going to be able to have an adult conversation here right now. Does that make sense? As far as positive thinking about ourselves, I have said in the past, some positive delusion when it comes to yourself is acceptable. I'm beautiful in my own way. I'm smart in my own way. I'm capable. I'm strong, right? Even if you don't totally believe it, it is acceptable. Positive delusion about the self is acceptable. We don't categorize it into magic thinking because number one, we focus on that it's beneficial. What's most important is that our thought is beneficial. That's more important than whether our thought is accurate or not. Okay, think Wright brothers. They had an inaccurate thought, and their inaccurate thought was, I believe I can fly. It's kind of inaccurate, but it was beneficial for them to think that way. And they fell over and over and over and over. You can imagine the montage of different contraptions that they did and how many times they probably crashed. But they kept the delusion, the positive delusion, I believe I can fly, until one day they figured it out. Making sense? So positive delusions about the self is not the same as magical thinking. It's how we pad our ego. We need a big, fluffy ego so that we can go out in the world and take all the bumps, all the scrapes, all the concrete that we're going to hit and still maintain our sense of self because we got a big, fluffy ego. Does that make sense? And this is where positive thinking is going to be very helpful for us rather than negative thinking. So, for instance, if I go out into the world and I think, I'm a piece of crud, I'm no good, I'm just so dumb, and then somebody mistreats me, I'm a raw nerve. Let's say someone cuts me off and takes my parallel parking spot, and I'm, oh, this always happens to me. I can't handle it. I can't handle life. Why? Because I prepared myself using negative thinking. But if instead, I'm on these affirmations, whatever, right? This positive thinking, and I'm beautiful, I'm wonderful. This is great. I'm smart, I'm capable. I'm capable, I'm blessed, look how much I have, right? And then someone takes my parking spot. It hurt a little. It's like, man, oh well, anyway, I'm beautiful. I'm like, you understand? It's like you go into the next things that you still have because you're fluffing up the ego. So it's good for us to keep that positive delusion, the positive sense of self. And so when we think about what other people may be thinking about us, it's better to say, hey, look, I don't know what other people are thinking about, blah, 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 it's none of my business. That's best. But if you're gonna think anything, don't go negative. At least give yourself a positive delusion. People love me. They probably like me. At least give yourself that, because when it deals with our ego, we need as much fluff as possible. So we're going to use some aggrandization and delusion to fluff the ego, because the ego is so important and so fragile, right? It's like if you're walking with an egg on a fork, that's your ego. You're going to exaggeratedly be careful. So you got to overdo it. And you know this instinctually because of the way you talk to a child, right? As I use that example, the child shows you their picture that they drew and you fluff their ego, don't you? You don't say, oh, well, just being honest, I mean, it's probably average for your age. You don't say that. You go, oh, this is beautiful. It's a work of art. Wow, it's so amazing. We can hang this up on the refrigerator. I love it. Why? Because we need to fluff their ego. Why? Because we know when they get out there in the real world, it's going to get rough and they need all the fluffiness possible. So that's how we must treat our own ego. Does that make sense? And that's how we take care of our inner child. And we can also have positive viewpoints of other people. And that helps us as well, because when we let go of judgment and judging other people, then we let go of feeling judged. When we let go of judging other people, then we don't feel as judged. So we should say, other people are beautiful. Other people are wonderful. Other people are capable. Other people are strong, right? So it's good to have these positive thoughts in that direction as well. So what's going to be the benefits of thinking positive? Now, let me see if I can grab this. I saw someone had a question here in my Zoom. Let's see if I can find that. Is fluffing it with padding the only way to ensure our egos aren't fragile? Your ego is fragile no matter what. So to ensure that your ego does not get destroyed or broken, then fluffing it is the way we do it. Yes, this is the only way of protecting the ego, is fluffing it, fluffing that ego. That's why I'm always telling you, think positively about yourself, say positive things about yourself. And whenever you ever see me talking to a survivor on here and then they say something negative and I'm just like, they say it about themselves. I'm just like, oh, don't do that. Because I'm like, just don't say bad things about you. Don't say bad things about you. Fluff that thing up. Fluff that thing up. Okay, great. So, positive benefits of thinking positively or beneficially is, if you have beneficial thoughts and beneficial thinking, you have improved mental health, you have improved physical health, you have increased resilience, you have better relationships. If you think positively, that is beneficially, you have greater success in life, you have higher self-esteem, you have increased motivation, you have more creativity, you have more longevity, endurance, you're going to live longer. You have better problem solving skills. If you think positive, if you think self beneficial thoughts, then you're able to approach challenges and opportunities as something for growth. You have increased productivity. Your optimism will foster energy, efficiency. You have decreased stress. If you think positively, you'll get better sleep. If you think positively, then you'll have healthier coping mechanisms, because positive thinkers are less likely to resort to unhealthy habits when stressed. When you think positively, it's like you become a magnet for opportunities, because your mind, your reticular activating system, is able to see the beneficial opportunities faster because you're always feeding it those positive thoughts and ways of thinking. You change the neural pathways in your brain to be able to think in a positive way. You enhance your emotional intelligence, If you think positively, beneficially, you have better judgment, decision making, a better sense of purpose, more spiritual growth, more joy. You're more popular, you're more attractive. Need I say more? So please make the choice, and it is your choice to be positive, to think positive, thoughts that are beneficial to yourself and have a benefit to the people around you. And as a result, you will enjoy increase everything. And that's the best mindset.